topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Barry G. Fowler, EA, brings you Tax Talk for You right here on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. As an enrolled agent and a national leader in tax resolution, as well as trucker, bookkeeping, and tax planning with over 30 years of experience, Barry will break down taxes, bookkeeping, tax planning, and tax relief for individuals and businesses just like you. So let's have some Tax Talk for You with your host, Barry G. Fowler.
Hey, good Monday morning to everybody. Hope everybody is going to have a great week. It's a way to get started here and talking about, taxes. In this case, what we're really talking about today is IRS penalties. That's right. IRS charges penalties. Now, hopefully you've never seen them, but for those people, when you're paying your taxes, sometimes you just don't meet all of your tax obligations and you end up owing a penalty. IRS does charge penalties for various reasons, things like not filing your tax return on time, not paying any tax owed on time and in the right way. I mean, imagine that. At least you paid it, right? Nope, you didn't do it in the right way. You get a penalty. Prepare and file accurate returns. Provide accurate and timely filed information returns. Yes, even returns that are just there to give them information. And you got to file them and you didn't file it on time. Guess what? Smack. Penalty right on you. And then the IRS is going to charge you interest on a penalty if you don't pay it in full. And some penalties, they continue to charge every month until you pay the full amount. There are different types of penalties. And, there are certain things you need to do if you get a penalty and to avoid penalties. But how do you know? Well, first off, IRS is going to send you a love letter. We love your money. We charged you a penalty. We're hitting you with interest. Please pay us. But if you don't open that envelope and read it, highly unlikely you would know that the IRS hit you, slapped you with penalty. They slap you when you're down. So that notice or letter, read it. It'll tell you about the penalty, the reason for the charge, and what they expect you to do next. Now, IRS has been known to be wrong. I mean, I've seen them because you haven't filed an extension where you actually mailed the extension in instead of having it electronically filed, which the extension only got you an extension of time to file, not in time to pay. See, when you're filing your personal tax return, your 1040, and you file that extension, it's not an extension of time to pay. They expect you to estimate how much you have to pay and to pay it in. And then as long as it's less than about $900 that you owe in the difference, they're not going to hit you with penalty as long as you file on time. But if you don't pay and you're going to owe, guess what? Slap that penalty on you as soon as you file, plus back interest. And it's just one of those things, hey, we got to deal with. So maybe you filed your extension and you got proof of it, and we can verify it with the IRS, and we can remove that penalty. Now, there are different types of penalties. And, the IRS is going to send you notices about them if you have those incurred. Information returns. It applies to taxpayers who don't file or furnish their required information return or payee statement correctly by the due date. Hey, 1099s is an information return. Your W-2s. Actually, if you don't file a W-2, W-3 with Social Security Administration, man, you should see the penalty they hit you with. Those are incredible penalties in and amongst itself. So, you have those things that become major problems. Failure to file. This means you didn't file your tax return by the due date or extended due date. And they slap you with that penalty. Failure to pay. Okay, you owed money, you didn't pay it by the due date, you didn't pay it when you filed the tax return. And guess what? Smack right there. Another penalty. Isn't it bad enough that you owed them money? That they're going to turn around and hit you with the penalty and then interest on top of that? We get to have fun here. We can complain about the IRS, but if we didn't have the IRS, how many people would actually file a tax return? Nobody. There'd be no compliance. So, if no IRS, no collection activity, you wouldn't be scared. You're not going to file. You see, the IRS also hits you with accuracy related penalties. This applies when you don't claim all your income or when you claim deductions or credits for which you don't qualify for. So if you left off a 1099 NEC, left off a W-2, the IRS is going to send you a notice saying this isn't accurate, this is the information we got, and therefore hit you with penalties. What's amazing, and I've seen it, is people who are in business. Maybe you're running a small business or an Uber or rideshare or Airbnb, and you're taking credit card payments, and you get the 1099-K. Guess what? The IRS gets it too. And now the IRS is actually doing checks and balances to those 1099-Ks, which is basically all your merchant transactions. And if the money isn't matching up or total isn't greater than that, man, guess what? You're going through a audit. Maybe a correspondence audit. It could be a live audit, depending on how much those 1099-Ks were. Here's a good one, and this is what the IRS has been really on, especially those that file for the ERC credits, employer retention credits. Erroneous claim for refund or credit penalty. This applies when you submit a claim for refund or credit of income tax for an excessive amount and reasonable cause it doesn't apply, meaning you went for this credit, but you don't really qualify for it. And you have no reasonable explanation of why you would have applied for this credit. Now, the IRS has failure to deposit. It applies when you don't pay employment taxes accurately or on time. So, they want you to go to EFTPS and put the payments through, or if you're using a payroll provider, submit those payments electronically. They really don't want them sent by check anymore. And you didn't follow the procedures of what you're required to do. And the IRS will tell you every year, here's how you got to deposit. You may be a weekly depositor, semi-weekly, quarterly, or annual depositor. It just depends on how much payroll you have. But the IRS is going to send you that notice in January of how you've got to make your payroll tax deposits. People think tax preparers sometimes get off scot-free, and all we do is prepare returns. But there are tax preparer penalties, which apply to people that do returns, but they engage in misconduct. I mean, you've seen it. People prepare returns and they throw things in that shouldn't be there. Those guys and gals have gotten in trouble. We've seen it where people have gotten in trouble, But it not only affects a tax preparer, but it affects you as well, using somebody unscrupulous like that, because they're going to still hold you responsible for that as well. Hey, if you've paid maybe some taxes due and you did it by check, and that check got returned, NSF, insufficient funds, or some other form of payment was applied, when your bank doesn't honor your check or other form of payment, IRS smacks you with penalties. You know, when things are tough, they just make it worse. It gets tougher. Um, if you did an underpayment of estimated tax for your company, it applies when you didn't make estimated taxes. You're an 1120, you're a C Corp, and you've got taxes and you've got to pay the taxes. They can hit you with penalties if you don't do correct estimated tax payments. And that's the same thing that goes for you as an individual. If you're required to make estimated tax payments, you need to make them, and you need to make them on time. The first one was due April 15th, second one, June 15th. The third one's going to be due in September the 15th, and then the next one's January 15th. Now, if that falls on the weekend, of course, it's the next business day. But if you don't make those estimated tax payments, guess what? The IRS again hits you smack right between the eyes with another penalty. See, the IRS expects compliance. They expect you to follow all their rules and regulations, the tax laws, whether you know them or not. And that's why you're here at taxtalkforyou.com, because you need to know how to save yourself from penalties and interest. Hey, when we come back, we're going to talk more about IRS penalties, and we'll even get into how to abate IRS penalties right after this.
We have only scratched the surface of today's show. Please stand by, as Barry G. Fowler will be right back with Tax Talk for You. If you owe the IRS or are going through an IRS audit, don't go at it alone. Call Taxation Solutions Tax Relief at 888-930-1016. We are your solution for IRS debts, audits, back taxes, garnishments, liens, and levies. Whether you're an individual or business, you need a solution and a strong, aggressive tax resolution. Don't let the IRS walk all over you. Stop the IRS now. Call 888-930-1016 or go to taxationsolutions.net now for a free, no obligation consultation. Let's get back to Tax Talk for You with more Tax Talk. Once again, here's your host, Barry G. Fowler.
Hey, welcome back. And no penalty if you're a second or two late. Don't worry about it. We don't charge penalties here at Tax Talk for You. One thing that I would tell you is you're probably late. Get over and follow us at taxtalkforyou.com. That way you're never late. And we don't have to charge penalties or interest for you guys not to be in here on time at the show. Just kidding. We don't charge penalties or interest, but we love having you. If you got questions, please feel free to submit them to us at taxtalkforyou.com and W4CY Radio. The IRS charges interest. If you owe money, the IRS charges interest. If you owe penalties, IRS charges interest. The IRS needs to collect money from you and I and everybody else to fund the government, and the amount of debt that people have out there as taxpayers is significant. And if everybody would pay it all in, today, IRS would be thankful. Even if you don't have the money, just pay it in, right? Hey, it doesn't work that way. But they're going to continue charging interest to make your situation worse than it is today, and it'll be worse tomorrow because of the interest and the accumulation of the penalties. If the IRS says it's really simple, how do you get rid of penalties? You pay them. Send the payment or pay your taxes in full to stop future penalties and interest from adding up. Hey, that's simple. And that's why Taxation Solutions exists. is one, maybe it's to abate penalties, two, put a solution in place, stop the IRS, stop them in their tracks. Maybe it is actually correcting what the IRS says is the amount due and putting the right amount in there. So, that being said, call us at 888-930-1016. Again, 888-930-1016. If you're watching this online, we got scroll down at the bottom. You can catch our phone numbers. You can catch our website, taxationsolutions.net. But if you're listening to the radio, hey, again, it's 888-930-1016. Now, how do you remove or reduce a penalty? Well, one way is to prove the IRS is absolutely wrong. And then they should not have charged you a penalty because you did things correctly. Maybe their system messed up. But generally, the IRS doesn't go for that. You've got a lot of hurdles to prove. But you might be able to remove or reduce some penalties if you acted in good faith and you can show what the IRS believes is reasonable cause. So if you weren't able to meet your tax obligations by law, they can't remove or reduce interest unless the penalty gets removed or reduced. Hey, I got dogs going crazy over here, but we're going to let them be a little bit crazy for a little while. Hey, Vic, good question. Is a penalty and levy the same thing? Nope. Penalties, as we talked about, is what's being charged for various reasons. A levy is when the IRS is going to pull money straight out of your bank account to pay taxes or penalties that are due to the IRS. So, you've got those complications that are there, but the IRS does give you a bunch of warnings and will give you the chance to make that work. Sorry about that. I had to yell at my dog here real quick. Maybe she'll be quiet. If not, we'll have to lock her up on the next break. We'll see. She does have her kennel she does enjoy. Not used to me being home during the day because usually I'm at the office, but today we have a little bit of ranching to do. We got some meat birds to take over to the processors. We didn't want to process them ourselves. And then we've got some cattle to move and everything else. So yes, we do some ranching out here. And one of these days we're going to talk about farm and ranch taxes, as well. But we're talking about how to remove penalties. So if you disagree with the amount you owe, and as far as penalties go, you may dispute the penalty. You can actually call the IRS. I don't recommend doing it yourself because, you are vested in this and it becomes a very testy situation when they just tell you absolutely no. But if you choose to, call the number on the notice, give them your notice number. There's a letter number in the top right corner, and then tell them why you're thinking they should reconsider the penalty. You can also send in a Form 843 disputing or requesting that they abate the penalty, but be prepared to make sure you have reasonable cause in that notice, in that letter that you're sending them. And so when you're calling, have the notice or letter that they sent you, the penalty that you want them to consider, such as a 2024 late filing penalty or 2023 late filing penalty. And then each penalty, you should have an explanation of why you think it should be removed. Now, the funny part is what the IRS is going to tell you, even though they'll tell you to do this, they're going to tell you, well, we can't do that, and you need to send in Form 843. See, there are multiple ways of dealing with the IRS, and one of these things is when you call, be prepared for some ignorance by the people that you're calling into. Also, be prepared that just because a website or someplace says this is what you should do, doesn't mean it's the right way to get it done. And it doesn't mean that the IRS is going to comply what's in maybe their website that says, hey, this is how you should do it. So be prepared to file the Form 843. The IRS also tells you the best way to avoid or get rid of penalties is don't do anything wrong. You avoid it by filing an accurate return, paying your taxes by the due date, and furnishing information returns timely, not applying for credits that you shouldn't be getting. Apply for an extension of time so that you're not missing due dates, and then make sure your taxes are all paid when you file that extension. And hey, the last thing the IRS tells you is, hey, apply for a payment plan. Hey, that's great. If I couldn't afford my taxes then, how am I going to afford my taxes on a monthly basis when you're adding more interest and penalties every single month, even though I'm on a payment plan with you? Doesn't make sense, but it is the IRS. Some of the common penalties that you and I have seen, that failure to file penalty, it does accumulate 5% per month on the balance due to a maximum of 25%. Hefty penalty. Estimated tax payment penalty is equal to the interest lost by not having sufficient withholding or paying estimated taxes throughout the year. They hit you with penalties and interest on that. Failure to pay is 0.5% per month of the balance due to a maximum of 25%. Whew. Those three penalties alone, and this is stats from 2019, made up 95.5% of all IRS civil penalties for individual taxpayers. Amazing. 57% of that is from failure to pay. 29% is from estimated taxes. And then about 10% is failure to file. So, you can ask for relief, and sometimes the IRS grants it. But fewer and fewer penalties are abated all the time. We work really hard to get our penalties abated for our clients, and we spend a lot of time doing it. We don't charge unless we're successful. We have a fairly good track record of being successful at getting penalties abated. But again, we know that it's down to, between 10 and 15% of penalties that are actually abated by the IRS. And therefore, we felt it's not fair to charge you to get penalty abatements unless we are, successful. And it saves you money, saves you time, and it means we're going to jump through bigger hoops and try harder than most people out there because of that request and how hard it is to get penalty abatements. Now, hey, I'm going to tell you, there's some things out there, and you can get a first-time penalty abatement. As I advised a client, upfront, using a first-time penalty abatement on a $45 penalty isn't worth it to you, me, or anything. So you're going to make a bigger mistake sometime in your life, and you're going to want that first-time penalty abatement. So maybe we don't use it on that. So, kind of pick and choose. Hey, we're going to take a short break. When we come right back, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the do's and don'ts in requesting penalty abatement. And we're going to get into talking a little bit about trucker taxes, and things that truckers need to do and small business people need to do out there when they're running their business. And we're going to be right back after this.
We have only scratched the surface of today's show. Please stand by as Barry G. Fowler will be right back with Tax Talk for You. As an owner-operator, you already spend too much time away from your family. Trucker Tax Tools handles all your bookkeeping and taxes no matter what level trucker you are. Life on the road can be taxing, but that doesn't mean that your wallet or time with your family should suffer. Trucker Tax Tools makes your life run smoothly. Go to truckertaxtools.com for a free guide that will give you the tools to never worry about your taxes again. Call Trucker Tax Tools 877-966-2477 or go to truckertaxtools.com now and let the experts keep you trucking. Let's get back to Tax Talk for You with more Tax Talk. Once again, here's your host, Barry G. Fowler.
Hey, welcome back. Kind of some of the do's and don'ts of applying for penalty abatement. As I said, sometimes that first-time penalty abatement is really good, and using that to abate some penalties. You can use it if it's your first penalty and you're in compliance. They may grant it over the phone. But a lot of times they're going to request that you do file that form 843 and to request penalty abatement using reasonable cause, and you got to put it in writing. You've got to attach your evidence, your rationale to support what is your reasonable cause claim. 843 is preferable because it contains the minimum requirements to identify what penalties you're trying to abate. Now, you're going to have to do this for every penalty that the IRS has charged you. So if you have different years and you have the penalties out there, they will require an 843 for each and every year and every form. If you get an adverse determination by the IRS, you can appeal the IRS denial of that penalty abatement. If any of the criteria on its own merits does not qualify for you an abatement, there are other reasons maybe have been ignored. This occurs because the IRS uses, guess what, computers, probably AI now, to assist in penalty abatement determination, and it can be flawed. So based on that flawed tool, using appeal of it is sometimes worthy. Make sure you're very clear and specific on the circumstances that were outside your control that caused the non-compliance. Illness, incapacitation, lost records, hurricane, fire, you name it. It could be the things that are out there. No, Jasper, no. See, my lab's going crazy. There must be something outside the window, and she's now going nuts. You got to show the timeline as well, and provide very specific and chronology of the events for the time period of non-compliance. If you've got illness, show that doctor's letter showing your incapacitation or inability to perform normal support activities that gave you reasonable cause. Also show prior compliance. IRS basically states they should use penalties to deter non-compliance. Taxpayers should also be prepared to explain small amounts of prior penalties. So they want to make sure that you're going to be in compliance. And then don't forget, follow up. Sometimes, and I hate to tell you, things get lost at the IRS. And sometimes your penalty abatement cannot be tracked within the IRS. You can't track it on IRS transcripts. You have to call the IRS and make sure that they all the information and make sure that they are following through with it. And if you are requesting penalty abatement and you have not paid the penalties, make sure you get some kind of collection hold on your account while the abatement is being requested and worked on, so that they don't come and levy your bank account. Now, there's a lot of don'ts that are out there, and we can kind of sum this up as, they're saying don't pay the penalty before requesting reasonable cause. You can go to a collection, don't do the collection due process hearing, because it's going to extend the statute of limitations. But you can use it to thoroughly consider penalty abatement, and has a good chance of doing that, but only after you have exhausted using the 843 requesting that penalty abatement. Zena, refreshing to hear our dog while talking about stress of IRS. I love dogs, man. We love our dogs. You can see my border collies up here in the window. Her name is Alibi, and there's a long story behind that. Talking about dogs here real quick. My Alibi, I was actually out buying a couple cattle, and they had some border collies, and my wife said, "Oh, you can pick up one." And I said, "Well, I like two of them here. I was going to pick them both up." She goes, "Not unless I get a puppy." And I laughed. And of course, they had the border collies there where I was getting them, and they were giving them away, and purebred. And she was going to help be an outside dog and chase my cattle and everything. Well, you can tell she's in the house and having fun, and she doesn't chase my cattle because she's in the house. And that's my Alibi. I named her Alibi as a joke. And guess what? It's tough. Cena, thanks for bringing that up. I mean, it's got to have a little bit of fun while we're talking about IRS. Our dog's out here seeing something out in the pasture. I just don't know what it is. Anyway, IRS is going to reject your penalty abatement request if you're using your abatement that you based on reliance on a tax pro and or financial hardship. IRS has strong backing for these two decisions based on court rulings. You're going to get a very quick determination letter saying it's been rejected, and you'll have very little appeal rights or consideration if you were to take that to appeals. Now, I also tell you that you can ask for penalty abatement, but you got to do it right in the right amount of time during the right statute of limitations. 3 years from when the return was filed, or 2 years after the penalty was paid. In the past, the IRS sometimes allowed penalty refund past the expiration date. However, the IRS has corrected this and not going to allow that outside of the timeframes are met rejections. So, you kind of got to do things right. Don't expect anything to be done quickly. We have had penalty abatements be out there for 6 months, 8 months, almost a year. And if they do abate the penalty, make sure they've abated it correctly by looking at your transcripts. And you can verify that the penalty abatement, was out there. If you go to appeals, again, you're adding another 6 to 12 months for that process to happen. It's amazing sometimes how slow the IRS can be when dealing with these type of things and the penalties and relief for you and every taxpayer that's out there. So, if you do have penalties, I recommend you get some help. Using Taxation Solutions Tax Relief or Trucker Tax Tools, we can get holds placed on your account. We actually step in, use with powers of attorney, and then we can put holds in place, start working on the penalty abatement, even possibly work on a solution for you that could be just as good as getting the penalties abatement. Sometimes, the things that we can put in place for you are solutions that you need to get your life back in order. Hey, let's talk about small businesses and trucking. When we start talking about, and we were talking about penalties, one of the worst penalties that's out there if you're running a business, even a trucking business, and you've got payroll, is the payroll taxes. And when you're not paying the payroll taxes or filing timely the payroll tax returns, you're going to get hit with penalties. And those penalties can be strong and severe. And it's good to have a guard dog that can, keep the IRS away. Maybe that's what's out there outside the gates. The IRS coming after penalties. I don't have any, thank God. But, hey, we help take care of, your business and everything as far as penalties go. But if you miss payroll tax payments, you're going to have, the penalty, of course, late filing and not paying. But if the money stays out there long enough, the IRS is going to come after you as the business owner or signer on a checking account for trust fund penalties. And trust fund penalties can be severe. Talk about how severe it is. Hey, we get to talk about that right after this break. So stay tuned and let's talk about trust fund penalties and how to get away from them right after this.
We have only scratched the surface of today's show. Please stand by as Barry G. Fowler will be right back with Tax Talk for You. As an owner-operator, you already spend too much time away from your family. Stop spending time doing paperwork. Go to truckertaxtools.com, a solution built specifically for truckers. Truckertaxtools.com makes your life run smoothly. Let's get back to Tax Talk for You with more Tax Talk. Once again, here's your host, Barry G. Fowler.
All right. Hey, love to hear things from people and that people are listening. Jesse, yes. I know you love to hear stories like our dog stories and cattle stories. That is cool. Yeah, I like the name for our puppy, Alibi. My daughter gave me a hard time because I was talking to her on driving back from picking up the two calves. And I told her that I named her Alibi, and she's like, "Oh, that is a crazy name." Well, guess what? We got home. My daughter saw the puppy, said, "Oh, she's got to have one of her own." So we actually went back and picked up her brother. And my daughter decided to name hers Rooster. No, it's not a chicken. It's a dog. Yeah, he's a great puppy, and he's been fantastic and everything. But hey, if you had our services, would be covered for any penalties. Well, if you fail to pay, you're not covered. If we fail to file because you signed your returns and you did the things that we've asked you to do, then the failure to file penalty would fall on us. If we do stuff wrong, we guarantee the accuracy. As long as you provided us all the information, then you're covered for, those kind of penalties. If you fail to give us stuff, there's nothing we can do in regards to that. If you're doing payroll with us, we make sure everything is filed timely and correctly. If you bounce your payments, hey, I'm not here to cover your money. You've got to make sure that you've got money in the account to pay the payroll taxes as you go through. Now, we talked about the bad things in penalties, and we're talking about small business, whether you're a trucker, and you're running payroll, or you're a small business and have payroll, if not paying those payroll taxes can become deadly for you and any other owner in the business or manager if they're a signer. Because when the IRS hits you with trust fund is simply the amount of money you withheld from your employee's check for payroll. So the federal withholding, Social Security, and Medicare on the employee side can be charged to any person of responsibility in the company, and the IRS will assess those trust fund penalties. It's a civil penalty that you will have to pay. Now, they hit you with that on the personal side and everybody else responsible. The really bad part is that if you have an employee who's a signer on a checking account and you don't pay the trust fund penalties, they can be hit with trust fund penalties as well and collect from them. Kind of amazing out here. Yeah, I still got dogs going crazy. There's nothing I can do about it. And I'm sorry that making noise back there, but hey, gotta love them. We've got 4 dogs here in the household, and 3 of them decided they want to make noise while I'm on radio. So, hey, we're having fun and talking and talk through it. Can we get penalty abatement on trust fund penalties? Yes, we can. Matter of fact, a lot of times what we've done is gotten penalty abatement for people that are not really in position of responsibility, and we find ways to get around it. Also, what we want to look at very carefully is, what can we do to prevent this on your side? And sometimes it is making sure that you've paid the trust fund part of the penalties off, the trust fund taxes off, and that the IRS applies it correctly so that they cannot assess the trust fund penalty. We had a client who owed a considerable amount of taxes and had one year that they were going to get hit exorbitantly on trust fund penalties, and we managed to get them to pay off the trust fund portion of the tax and get it applied correctly. And then avoided that whole trust fund portion of it. The revenue officer who was dealing with us was disputing me and arguing with me that we couldn't do that. Went straight to the manager, and we made the payment listed as strictly as for the trust fund portion of the taxes, and got away from having that trust fund penalty assessed against our clients. And there were 2 partners in this business, and it was a significant amount that we were able to avoid. They were also trying to assess trust funds that were outside of the statute to be able to do it. And we were able to get those trust fund penalties avoided as well. So if you're running up against trust fund penalties or have payroll taxes due, hey, feel free to give us a call at 888-930-1016. Again, 888-930-1016. Hey, Robert, great question. Truckers. Do all truckers have payroll? No, not every trucking company has payroll. If you are a Schedule C filer and you're the only person working, you should not have payroll even for your LLC. Now, if you were an S Corp and you're the only driver, yes, you have to have reasonable wages paid through payroll. Means you collect, the payroll taxes and submit it and file your 941s and 940 and W-2s every single year. We help truckers through this problem many, many times. Make sure your company is set up right. Make sure you're reading your EIN letter, and make sure the taxes are correctly. Hey, Charlie, you're a cat person. Man, I'm not allowed to say things about cats, but I do have a couple of barn cats. They're working cats, and so I like them because they do work in the barn and keep the mice away, usually. Sometimes they're lazy. The rest of my pets, my dogs are always inside and get to enjoy running around the ranch with me. So it's really good. It's one of these days I'm working from home. Like I said, I've got a little bit of ranching to do here today and some meat birds to get over to the processor and pick up the pigs from the butcher as well. So, I have a little bit of a long work day out here, but it'll be good. And I'm actually enjoying doing this from home, other than my dogs, being a little bit crazy today. And normally, if I did this from home, they haven't been that bad. But today, I decided to leave them here out in the living room, and guess what? We get to enjoy them. It is what it is. Hey, one thing I want to tell you about trucking. Trucking is a specialized business, and in trucking in itself, you need somebody that's going to prepare your taxes, do your bookkeeping, and keep you on the straight and narrow. And that's what Trucker Tax Tools does. TruckerTaxTools.com. Very low pricing. We start at $25 a week for your bookkeeping, and we help take care of you and your business. Make sure we're finding every single tax deduction, and make sure that you're minimizing the taxes that you pay to the IRS, which is what our ultimate goal is pay as very little to the IRS as possible. Maximize the amount of money that you're keeping. Hey, I didn't realize my dogs were going to be such a hit today. Brenda, doggies are getting 15 minutes of fame. I'm glad you love to hear them. I wish I was having 15 minutes of fame. I get to be on here for an hour. And then tomorrow I'm going to be on a show called Ask the Experts. It's 10 a.m. Eastern time on W4CY radio. So, but I won't be doing that one from home, so we won't have the dogs. We'll be at our headquarters here in Cypress, Texas, and there at the Trucker Tax Tools Taxation Solutions offices. So it'll be a little bit quieter. Maybe my staff will be barking at me because I haven't been there today and I'm not doing work. But hey, that would be a whole different story, wouldn't it? We could have a little fun with that. Maybe I'll get one of the staff to bark outside the door there and add to our fun. Hey, Amber, you turned in after your friend told you could hear puppies today. My puppies are decided to be louder for you, Amber. Hey, thanks for the shout out there. Good tax advice to here as well. Turn in every week. I don't have puppies every week, but if it brings more people to the show, I may have to have it here with puppies around making noise, every week. You can tune in to Tax Talk for You every Monday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time on W4CY Radio. Dogs are just going crazy here. Sorry about that. For those of you trying to listen at home and listen through the muck of the dogs, hey, it is what it is. One thing I want to say, I know this weekend was probably a very stressful weekend, and things that have happened here in the United States and over in Iran and everything else. God bless our troops. God bless our military. God bless our president. The things that our military does for us, you can never tell them thank you enough for their sacrifice and putting their country ahead of their family. And we do appreciate it. We send out our thanks to our great military that's out there. And our prayers to their family. I know it was probably stressful, and it's now a stressful time. Everybody can feel the stress in the air over the things that have happened. The best thing we can do is continue to enjoy our freedom, our love of the country, and our love of God with every person out there. Hey, again, don't miss an episode here. You can go to Facebook, follow us there so you don't miss a single episode. You don't see the wonderful background of dogs barking or whining. She may want to go out, so I'm going to have to let her out right after the show. Maybe next time I'll introduce you to my favorite dog, Jazzbury, or Speedy. And those dogs are the ones right now making the noise here. Again, every Monday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time on Tax Talk for you on W4CY Radio. Tune in there, like, follow us online, and we will see you next week. Have a God bless and glorious week.
Are you an individual or business that wants to understand taxes and how they affect you? Are you looking for specific tax advice for self-employed, business owners, and truckers? Are you behind on taxes and your bookkeeping? Are you dealing with the IRS and ready to have some relief? Then you need Tax Talk for You, hosted by tax and trucker expert Barry G. Fowler, EA. Tune in 10 a.m. Eastern Time every Monday right here on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Don't forget to check this and past episodes at taxtalkforyou.com. See you next week at W4CY.com. Since 1983.